Okay guys, welcome to the channel. I often have to refilm my introductory video to the channel, and that's what this is because of changes in my gear, room, philosophy of the channel, keeping people up to date that ask me the most questions, FAQs. That's what I wanted to cover in this video, as well as give you a tour of my home and all my gear. If that's what you really want to see, you're a long-time subscriber, already know much about me, but just want to see an update of all my gear, I got a chapter you can jump to and get the tour that I'm going to do in a second. But what I wanted to do is for new subscribers or people just don't understand who I am, why I'm here, how am I different from other channels, outline a little bit of that in this introductory video to the channel. So number one, I've been an audiophile since 16 years old, and I'm gonna say that's probably close to 40 years now. So I've seen and done it all for a long time, especially going to shows, and I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But in terms of YouTube, I actually had a presence in the past. I was one of the first users, I think in 2012, at least in Houston, of Teslas, driving a Tesla. And I had a channel, and it was very popular in terms of just uploading videos. Anything you put with the word Tesla in it got tons of views at the time because that was unique. And so it taught me a lot of both good and bad things about YouTube. Obviously, the bad thing, in my opinion, is that the audience is focused on popular things, pop culture kind of things. And what happens in the audiophile realm is people want subscribers and views. So naturally, things like topics like Klipsch, Macintosh, or esoteric brands that are like the Ferraris and the known Lamborghinis get concentrated on the most. And then obviously as well in this hobby and YouTube, it's more conducive to very primitive short form content that doesn't get into the weeds as much as longtime hobbyists can kind of learn from. It's more of just superficial stuff. So I didn't want to be another Me Too review channel. I don't take any gear on loan for the most part. I only review stuff I actually own or my friends own, or I go to shows and give reports. And now that's where I kind of differentiate myself as well from others. No special production value. In fact, you'll mostly see me behind the camera, especially at shows, because I'm not so much a content creator as much as a content chronicler of my life. I just chronicle the things that I go and see and do in the hobby that I find interesting myself, put it on camera in a relatively non-edited, authentic form, and hope you enjoy it as well and learn the same things that I'm learning from. And usually I'll give you a takeaways of what I did learn from this visit in the beginning of each video. So that's kind of my format and theory of how I do things, and a little bit different. Again, but I go to almost every show. You won't see more coverage of audiophile shows than I give on the channel, but they are going to be more primitive, more authentic though, and raw in coverage. So I hope you enjoyed that form. But I give a lot of different coverage as well. I have stuff on the most esoteric brands you'll ever hear, things you don't ever hear about, like IO Design, acapella spherons, $1 million speakers, you name it, the most esoteric gear you'll see on this channel. But also, I cater to people that, where I came up, not having a lot of money when I first started, having to do it myself. I have GR Research and Extremes that I built for myself, mini DSP, learning how to buy gear that has the highest value, SVS subs, these kind of things I like to address as well. And then go into the weeds, showing people how to optimize, because one thing you'll hear in this room is a lot of echo, and I'm doing this on purpose because as I do my tour, you'll see in my reference room how much difference my voice makes. If your voice sounds different in a room, the music's going to sound different. So eventually I'll tackle this room with room treatments, and I'll be a part of a video series, but you're going to hear the difference in that it's more than just fancy gear. That's where a lot of people get on this gear merry-go-round and only think of price and gear. You're not going to get that. You're going to get eye candy for sure, but it's more about how you set it up, the people you use for expertise and learning, and sharing as much of my journey with you so that you can shortcut that. So without further ado, let me take the camera off and take you on a tour of my gear and my home. Okay, I'm going to start the tour in my office for a few things. Got some audiophile stuff in here. In fact, some very important tools that you shouldn't overlook. But first things first, I didn't mention, I did mention do it yourself in that little intro I did, but I'm doing my own subs, and this will help people on a budget get hopefully world-class performance. But the other thing I forgot to mention is that I do a lot of these tours and get to know the people behind the brands. Makes it so much better when you know the dealers, the distributors, the owners of the company. I'm using Acoustic Elegance drivers, which is one of my favorites. You're going to love that series if when that gets released. Maybe it's already released by the time you watch this, but in any case, Stax headphone rig. This is the best headphones I've ever heard, the X9000s, and I had to have it. And I heard it with the Blue Hawaii, with that upgraded volume control, and I just had to get the entire thing. It is without question my #1 tool for reference purposes, because it takes the room and zero distortion out of the equation and gives you zero distortion. If you really want to hear what's on a recording, those X9000s. Now, I'm not saying for everybody, although there's quite a few people that love the X9000, think it's the best in the world. But whatever headphone rig you like, I encourage you to use that as a reference tool to benchmark your home system, because taking the room out of the equation and distortion out of the equation, like most good headphones do, that's invaluable for knowing what kind of performance you're getting with your main rig. And again, in here, I'm using the Stax legendary DAC. This dates back to the 90s, $30,000, 20-something thousand, I think. I just love it. It's a tube DAC, and it just fits the whole vibe here. I got that from Steve McCormick, a legend in the industry. One other thing I do for a hobby is I love the 27 Club, all the artists that died at 27 years old. So I paint these pictures of them and then hang them on the wall. I'll show you in my other room here. Oh, also, hat rack. I'm a big hat fan, as you can tell. You will see tons of hats on me if you're new to the channel. Other than that, let me show you paintings. Sorry, the mess in here. But two more members of the 27 Club, Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain. I painted these, but I'm not an artist, okay? These are just very complicated paint by numbers that I take a picture that I like of these people, send it to this company who will create the colors in every different shade. You can see, like, you know, probably 30 different shades of grays here and blacks. So that it's a very complicated paint by number process, but as you can see, it comes out pretty cool. Now, in terms of my family room here, this is a speaker that I heard in the late 90s at a show, CES, and I loved them and had to have them. It was Wisdom Audio Adrenalines. And back then I couldn't afford them. They were over $25,000 in the 90s, but that probably would be $250,000 price tag if they made these today. But I was able to get them much cheaper later on in my life. This Apex RD is a ground box, one of a kind. Again, you want to see esoteric stuff you see nowhere else. Almost nobody has one of these. There's almost $20,000 worth of materials in there that Robert, who you'll see on my channel, sent me to try. Macintosh, this is the long legacy piece I had. It drives the top portions. This is an active speaker system with 4 amps. These are basically subs at the bottom, actively controlled here with a Wisdom Audio Adrenaline. They call it the brain, an active brain, and some power conditioning, and Emotiva amps for the bass modules, and a surround sound processor if I ever wanted to put in multi-channel in this room, but I'm just running 2 channels. And probably never will put in multi-channel now that I carry the box. I have an Arlic here, but I don't really use it. So let's go take a look at my main listening room though, and also you'll probably hear a much better sound quality of my voice as soon as I do this. Okay, I turned off picture-in-picture so you can get a better view of everything I show you. It's basically a garage apartment, and I turned the walls into, since I don't have a vinyl rig, I put my favorite albums or meaningful albums that I used to own, well I still own them, but used to play, and put them on the wall. This is my first one, Power, Corruption, and Lies by New Order, first album I ever owned. And so it has a bathroom up here, and you could use it as an apartment, but I turned it into a home theater / listening room. And my initial goal here, because it's a tough room, angled ceilings, tight, non-symmetrical, there's a
basically a closet there with a hot water heater. There's not symmetrical back, and then there's also a problem with this closet being different, and that being a hallway. Sound sees your room differently than your eyes. You may see it's equidistant, but there's a brick wall on the other side of this versus empty. So to get your system to track and behave identically per channel, it takes a lot of room treatments, as you've seen here. And that's why I'm going to hold off getting to the gear. I've got really great gear. But a tenet of my channel is focusing on setup, room treatments, DSP to dial things in. So you'll see a lot of treatments, and I'm constantly testing. You can even see I had some stuff out. I'm doing some more testing. I create a hush box for my projector. Nothing special in the projector, but I want to minimize the sound from the fan in that. And I have bass traps literally everywhere because I'm not able to do a swarm subwoofer setup with a small room. So what I do is kind of reverse the impact of a swarm sub by putting lots of bass traps around the room to even out the response. So all this whole thing behind me, my listening position, is a container full of insulation as a bass trap. ASC2 traps, bass traps on both sides. And these are partial bass traps. And then I have back here, this whole flight case is covered and includes insulation for a bass trap. So I try to even out the response from the bass and from reflections such that, unlike what most people will show you, and before I get to the gear, I get pretty much flat response. And this is left and right channel at my listening position, not 1 foot away. And even this dip here, I build in a Fletcher Munson kind of dip here intentionally. I could get it flat if I wanted to. But to track left and right identically all through the frequency range, and then my impulse response is zoop, and everything basically dies down. There is a small reflection, really small. I figured out it's coming from my lap. Not much I can do with it unless I sit with the room treatment in my lap. But in any case, this is as good as it gets from a listening position. And this is part of what I want to focus on here. Room treatments, measurements, and the tools, as well as the Bach, which I'm going to talk about in a second, are what is much more important in the long run than the gear. I'm going to get to the gear because I know a lot of people are gear fans, and so am I. But so many times you see people buy hundreds of thousands, even close to $1 million worth of gear. And then when people visit their room, they come out saying that really didn't sound like that much money worth of sound, or it's not the best thing they've ever heard, which it should be at that kind of cost. And that's disappointing. You don't want to be that guy. And there's plenty of those guys. You want to have set up properly. And a lot of my videos will dedicate to room treatment, setup, measurement tools, and we'll start with the Bach. What I have on the screen is the Bach for Mac. I have a whole playlist. I represent that product because it's a game changer. On top of giving you just alone, these two measurements in ear at my listening position would be worth buying it for. But when it does crosstalk cancellation, and you can get your room to behave almost identically left and right channel, despite the anomalies that I talked about, this is next level type stuff. This is junkie level stuff that I like to share with people. Not going to be for everybody. My channel's not for a lot of people. But if you're into that kind of level of stuff, you're going to enjoy some of the stuff I put out. And when you can get this crosstalk cancellation, all the walls disappear in this room. You think these speakers are too big for this room. The walls literally disappear. Flat response. No overloaded bass, even with a big rel sub, you think in this small room. Again, the numbers show it. So that's main tenet of my channel is room treatment, setup, measurements, and then having video. I talk about in many videos, YouTube is very important to me for content. So many people ignore YouTube, and the quality is often better. Dynamic range is often better on YouTube than the streaming services. On top of the visual and the performances that you won't see and be able to hear on streaming. So those kind of summarize my main tenets and how I'm a little bit different than the Me Too channels out there. Now, getting to the gear though, this is a do-it-yourself speaker, GR Research in Extremes. What I like about this as well is that I don't have a swarm subsystem in terms of putting bass around, but vertically I'm loading the room in many different spots such that my image, most people come back here, they're amazed. They're looking up at the image. They're looking up even at bass instead of it being halfway down to the ground. A lot of that is due to this point source array that Danny created. And really a great speaker, certainly if you have the wherewithal to put it together. I have a video series and playlist. It can give you cost no object performance at a modest budget. But it's not a project for anybody, as you'll see in my videos. The other thing I have is exceptional equipment, but high value is what I always look for. Steve McCormick will modify his lineage of amps from the 90s and 2000s. This is the DNA 125s. He converted these individual stereo amps at the time into monoblocks for me. I'd had him do the custom coloring and, more importantly, everything under the hood, state-of-the-art, modern. You would end up paying $20K or more at a dealer for such performance and parts. This is a much more efficient way to get high performance and better, actually, parts inside than many of these megadollar 50K amps when you actually look under the hood. But talking about the Bach, which I represent because it made such a big difference in my system, this is the Bach for Mac, which includes a Mac Mini and an RME. There's more advanced models that have all-in-one chassis, and I also have a demo model of that one. If you come by, you can check that out for different budgets, though. And like I said, this with a little bit of calibration, and I have videos on this, there is no addition you can make to your system that makes a bigger difference than implementing a box system. And I don't have to sell it and tell you, just come out here and listen for yourself or check out a demo at one of the shows. Another vital tool I'll show you down here, and just to show I use budget equipment as well, is a mini DSP SHD. And this is basically what I use for my DAC, Dirac, and it allows me to control each output to my sub and my mains to roll them off and control the bass in this room such that I get flat response. If I didn't have the mini DSP, this would be a much tougher task, if not possible. So that's a very economical and huge value piece. And I've had megadollar DACs. I don't miss anything with that piece. I would not take that out for the life of me. So home theater wise, I've got a Maggie Center with the actual bass. That's the bass module. I would only recommend the Maggie Center with that bass. On its own, it's pretty thin sounding and not very good. When you have the bass module stand with it, then it's acceptable. I'm using these for my rears. These used to be my reference. Actually, they were Steve Nugent's of Empirical Audio. Those have been in the hobby for a long time. No, Steve Nugent, and he used these at the shows. I repainted them, did some mods on my own. He had mods done. Pretty good speakers, but now they're relegated to the rear. I talk about the bass traps everywhere, the treatments, but power delivery is another thing that I focus on my channel that a lot of people don't. A couple of things that I have that have worked for me after testing tons of different things. Number one, probably one of the rare people that have a sub panel in my room, 4-gauge wire to this, and separate dedicated outlet for each of my main pieces of 2-channel gear. Now, I do have home theater, but what I do as well is, macrame is not a bad room treatment on the cheap. It does a little bit, and it's attractive. But there's an inacoustic, you can kind of see it back here, inacoustic 4500. That's a power conditioner that I've found. It does not have negative trade-offs, which many of them do. And I use that for a lot of the digital stuff, DVD players, and other pieces that won't reach all the way to the sub panel. So, giving you a little bit of a tour. In the Rel 25, I have a whole series on these. What I like, what I don't like about Rel. is important, but this has been a mainstay, and really almost all the gear in here has been a mainstay. I only add stuff. I really rarely get rid of stuff and sell stuff. I have no feedback on AudioGone because usually I give it away or keep it forever. But another thing I didn't talk about in the intro, I wanted to talk about with you guys. I do have a membership section to my channel, Audiophile Junkie, where you can join and not only get access to videos I don't release to the public for different reasons. Sometimes it's just fun stuff not related to audiophile. Sometimes it's more controversial stuff that I feel better putting in a private for members only. And also you get access, which is even more important, to my WhatsApp group. And that is where you can interact with me daily, as well as very high-end experts and other great audiophiles in the industry. I think we're over 50 people now, and the conversations are great, almost daily, almost hourly, actually. So if you don't live in a big city, if you don't have that ability to interact, this is a much more fun and informative community than you get online, where it's a cesspool of anonymity and really bad advice. I think everybody's enjoying that's in the WhatsApp group, and it's cost about $5. Now, I do have a membership section for people that want to support your channel in the dealership or manufacturer position. It's a little bit more, but that will give them perks for potential coverage at the shows. I'm running out of time when I can cover every room at a show, so I want to give priority to ones that support the channel and help me out there. So that's one of the perks there. Also, just aesthetically, this isn't the best looking room, but it's purpose built. I do love all the 27 Club, Amy Winehouse, all the people that died at 27 that were great artists, Kurt Cobain. And then I have this floor rug. You can pick out which members of the 27 Club each one of those are. And so nothing too exciting back here other than the sound. I welcome anybody to come listen if you're in the Houston area and hear for yourself. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the channel, and I'll see you back here soon.